Here it is, guys, the mini Mantis kit for the C7 Corvette. And the way it works is it uses the factory tie rod pickup point here and the bearing face to have a solid adapter bracket to relocate the tie rod's pickup point, corrects the Ackerman for drifting, and gives you two options for a moderately improved steering angle to a high improved steering angle. Just by reducing the ratio of the tie rod, you can see that the factory one was here, we're moving it there for a moderate improvement, and then we're moving it here for a super high angle. This one would be used if you had aftermarket control arms and you were able to have good clearance on your wheel both ways. You could move your tie rod from here to here. So I'll just give you a quick idea of how it goes on. Using our 3D scanner, we were able to make a perfect fitting adapter bracket that spaces the bearing out 5 millimeters and also comes with a brake caliper spacer that fits on the knuckle like this. And the reason why this serves two benefits to the kit is because it's giving you slightly more clearance on the wheel, and it's also moving your caliper slightly further away, which gives you more clearance to the control arm. In addition to that, you simply just install a bolt here, put your bearing back on, and now you have a solid relocated tie rod that you can move and adjust. Another added feature that we put in, with a bolt threading into a nut that's welded to the adapter, we run the risk of this loosening and falling out. So we decided to make this locking key that snaps on over top of the hex and gives you a safety lock that prevents this plate from allowing the bolt to back out. Any way that you tighten it on, the plate will still fit because of this slot allowing for a 30-degree difference in variation. So this will always work. And when you tighten this on, it will prevent this bolt from ever backing out. So with all that, let's go ahead and show you how it installs and compare the angle to the factory angle. And the only thing that we really need to take into consideration is your wheel clearance and the control arms that you're using. And since this adapter is going to work with our own control arms and any other control arms that are available on the market, this is going to be a good upgrade for just about anybody at a really low price. So to check the maximum angle potential from the factory setup, factory tie rods and everything, we're going to use a unbent toe plate that we have just laying around. This is going to be our straight edge. We will hold it against the face of the knuckle and we will go lock to lock, draw the lines on the paper, and then we can compare this to our mini Mantis kit that we will bolt on after and do the same thing. So this car is going to be a bit different than yours. As you can see, it's completely stripped. This is actually a prototype car that we have. It was in a fire and we're salvaging it and using it for what you can see, developing parts. Once you've taken your wheel off, from this point you just need to remove the caliper, rotor and wheel bearing, and that's all you need to do to install this adapter. So let's go ahead and do that. So once you've gotten to this point, the only thing you need to do is line it up with your wheel bearing holes and the tie rod pickup. You can install the provided bolt and put the factory bearing back in place.
A few inches later.
So it was actually easier just to put the adapter on the bearing first, as this fit is fairly snug. Go ahead and push that in. Put this back on. And you can see the adapter bracket is now installed. And I can just show you removing this and changing its position. We can move it in for far more clearance. For this simulation, we are going to run it in our moderate. And the way this works is we just install it like this. Put the Allen head through the hole and then install the nylock nut on top. And once you tighten those up, this no longer has any way of backing out. So let's go ahead and connect it up to our tie rod and let's see the angle difference. So now that you've got your adapter fully installed, there's just one thing to note. You do need to grind just a little bit of the knuckle right in this area so that this plate can sit flat. The casting is a bit rough there with the seam going all the way around. You need to flatten it out, and it's really easy to do just with a grinder or a die grinder or whatever you have available, just so when you tighten up this, you'll see that it's sitting flat against the plate. From here, we're just gonna compare our angle improvement. I'll move the tie rod from here to the inside and then we'll compare that as well. And with that, that'll conclude the install and overview of the C7 mini kit. We're also gonna have an identical design for the C5 kit, but since the knuckles and everything does vary and it is a bit different, the installation process will be the exact same, but the bracket itself will look different and obviously won't work on the C7. So our first line is just to describe a reference, basically a straight line to simulate going straight, and then we can compare our lead to trail to see what Ackerman we're at. Okay, so on our moderate tie rod position, which is the furthest out hole on the relocation bracket, we were able to obtain 50 degrees on the lead wheel and 48 degrees on the trail wheel. We did the best on centering the rack. I designed this bracket to be 0 degrees of Ackerman. There are a couple variables in terms of whatever your alignment is. If you have slightly more caster or less, that curve will change slightly because it changes the offset of the ball joint to the steering rack. But the original steering angle was 34 degrees on the lead and 31 degrees on the trail. So just with this moderate improvement, we were able to gain 16 degrees on our lead wheel. And assuming that you can get enough clearance with your wheels to the control arms, that's really going to be your only factor on limiting your steering angle is clearance. So with this adapter, you are easily able to get a very driftable friendly amount of steering angle. So let's just move this one position further in and see where it goes. This further in position was designed to be used with aftermarket arms. So with the aftermarket arms, you would have an abundance of clearance. You can see there's a couple areas where the tie rod gets super close to the sway bar mount. The calipers and the bolt for the caliper is going to get super close to the shock mounts. And I'm sure the wheel is going to be super close to the control arm as well, depending on what your offset is and stuff. So it's going to be just a theoretical angle of what's possible, but we'll go over that. We'll get the data, we'll move the point, and that's it. So on the maximum angle tie rod position, which is the furthest inward hole, this is going to reduce the ratio to the most that we have designed into the kit. So really the limitations on your angle is actually the knuckles interference to the control arms. We can actually go on even beyond this, and you have good clearance to the knuckle as well. It doesn't interfere to do with anything on the tie rod, and on the trail you have the same effect. The tie rod does not contact the knuckle in any position, but the knuckle itself is actually just starting to contact the bolt that goes into the shock. So how would you improve this? Basically, if you had an aftermarket control arm that has a motion ratio adjustable spring position, or if the distance between the ball joint and the suspension is further, that's going to bring this away from the shock and going to give you that clearance that you need. Also, just the control arm being a narrower design in this area is going to give you a lot more steering angle, and we will be selling these arms. And there's really only one other brand that sells arms that would work really well with this adapter. So let's check the angle of what this is capable of, but it's going to be slightly skewed as our limitation is not the steering rack's travel range, it is actually the interference from the knuckle to the control arm. So for the maximum relocated position that gives us the most steering angle, we were actually able to achieve 60 degrees of angle on our lead wheel and 60 degrees of angle on the trail. Again, this is not the limit of the rack, this is the limit of the knuckle interfering with the control arm. So with this adapter, you will be able to go to 70 degrees given you have enough clearance on all of the other suspension components. And we don't have a sway bar on here, so that would be another factor in the amount of angle that you're able to get. So with that, that is the mini Mantis kit for the C7. We also have the same thing available for the C5. I'm just going to throw the rest of the parts on so you can see how everything fits. If you were able to take them off, you'll be able to put them back on. And that's just going to wrap up and show you what it all looks like and what you can expect when you buy it. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you'd like to see next, and we'll see you guys on the next video.